This is the Community Preservation Committee meeting, the City Council hearing room, Monday, May 13th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, are indeed acknowledged and permissible. Could I get a roll call of the committee members?
Jim Soul.
Kristen Cantera Oliveira.
Jim Souza.
John Brandt.
Victor Farias.
John Franker.
So we're missing Charlie Monis, who possibly might show up. He could be a few minutes late. Is there anyone signed up for citizen input? No one? Good. Could I ever get a motion to accept the meeting minutes of April 30th, 2019?
I'll make a motion to accept the meetings of April 30th.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to accept the minute. Any questions or comments on the minutes?
That's mine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item up is a disclosure of apparent conflict of interest. So a couple of these projects that we'll be discussing, some of the board members are on some of the boards of these projects. So we had printed out copies of the conflict of interest disclosure if anybody wanted to submit them. Basically, that's what it's for. I'm one of those that is on one of the boards, which I will be abstaining from a particular vote, so I did not use that document, and I don't know if anybody else has any questions or comments on it.
No, myself also, I'm on the Board of Preservation, so I won't be voting on the two preservation projects.
Okay, any other comments on this? The next item up is parking. This came up as we are looking for the preservation consultant, and one of the questions from the students was that when they come here to work on this, who will pay for their parking, or can someone pay for their parking, or basically can we pay for their parking? We do have our budget that we have still funds in, and I was thinking maybe we could allocate something out of that. I don't know if we just allocate it or if we let them come up with a dollar figure for a month. And
Can I mention, just to make it clear to the committee that Sandy and I worked on this project together. Essentially what this is a student, a law school student, so they're working for us on a volunteer basis, probably be about twice a week for the summer. And so because they're working pro bono, it seemed reasonable they asked about being reimbursed for the parking.
I think it's a good.
Yeah.
How do we go about it though? Like, do we?
It can come from our budget.
Administration.
Right. No, I know that, but like, do we just allocate them a certain amount of money? Are they just gonna like send an invoice?
I think they just reimburse.
They turn in a receipt and get reimbursed?
I'm gonna have to find out because I'd have to do like a bill schedule.
Mm.
So I can find out from the parking deck how much they charge and if it's a half-a-day fee or a 2-day fee.
That's a good
and
idea.
then, so I'll see what's going on with the parking, if it's been handed over to the city or not yet, and then I'll find out how much it is. And then I'll get back to, I'll let Jim be my point person for that.
Yeah, it is what, in with the parking too, I also think that it might be a nice idea, I mean, Sandy's here quite often. I mean, she is paid a salary by the board out of that fund, but I also think parking is a bit different, and I think we should possibly allocate Sandy a small amount for that also, for the same type of thing, because I mean, I know she's, you know, I've come to the office, she's running out throwing coins in the machine. So I think we should come up with a budget. Maybe we'll discuss it. I don't know if two of us can get together and discuss it and come up with something, or I don't know if anybody has any ideas or thoughts on that.
I'm willing to do that with you, and I think we should do that and talk about it, just make sure we're not, we did it for the resident attorney as well, because we had to make sure that we weren't breaching any policy.
Right, and it could be that way with the city, so.
You know,
Yeah,
that
they
wasn't
check
a
with the
problem
city.
for a volunteer,
Yeah.
but for a paid employee, might, so.
So you and I will get together, then we'll speak with Jen or whoever in accounting, and see what they, maybe we can't do it, but I mean, that budget is ours to do, you know, what we want administratively, so I couldn't see why that can't be, so.
So where will the parking be for the volunteer?
Well, she was talking about the parking garage, we pay, like, they would go to the parking garage, because they would have a pass already for the month for that.
Is
Yeah.
it, that's all?
The parking garage is still open, Sandy?
Yep, parking garage, and plus across the street.
Oh, okay.
There's parking
So
across the
in the
street as
lot?
well. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
And I think they do half-day parking too, so
so
I'll find out how much it is for a half-day, full day, 2 days, 1 day, so.
okay.
And then we can get a schedule, you can get a schedule from the student, but I'll look into that.
Any other questions on that, or comments? The next item is the preservation consultant. Jim was working on this with Sandy. I don't know if there's any update on it at all. We spoke about it last time.
Just what you already talked about, this is morphed into the preservation consultant and also the pro bono student attorney. So the student attorney was kind of the first phase. I'd like to keep this on the agenda so that we can work into it.
Mhm.
But like I said, having the student attorney first seemed like a bigger priority, and working on a preservation consultant was kind of secondary. But I'd like to keep it on there so that we can transition to that after we have the attorney on board.
All right. Any comments on that? Questions for Jim? Next item is project update. The first project update is on the north end burial ground. I spoke with Mike Keane about this, and I sat down with him and I sat down with Chris Gallagher, and they explained the new cost estimate of the entire project, which they came before us our last meeting and gave us the estimated construction and total cost of the project. So the remaining funds from our original allocation for this project, out of that, there's $92,439 left, and with all of the new estimates of the entire project, they're asking for $149,602. So we would need to allocate that to make this project complete, really. And that would come out of our reserve funds. So, the original estimate was like $2,000 more, and they recalculated, and it's like it was $151,000, now it's $149,000. So that's the total that they would need to complete this project. As opposed to going, they broke it down in phases, but by doing it in phases, I mean, if they would have to keep coming back to us, reapplying for the next phase, which the cost estimate's gonna go up on the whole thing, as opposed to doing the whole thing at once.
I think it makes sense to consider approving it now, especially knowing that it's something that could be covered in our extra account.
We have the
reserve
funds.
account. We have the funds. It doesn't affect what we've already been working with for our other calculations. And this project's been going on for several years. It's really
FY17, I mean, we'll have to, make an appropriation order and go back in front of the council again, but I mean, obviously, the first architect, there was problems there, transitional between buildings and ground people, and it's just been lagging for years, and I think it's just something we believed in on the year we voted it, and I think the north end deserves it. So, I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion on this.
I'll make a motion that we fund from reserves the $149,602 to finish it.
Great.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion to fund $149,602 for the completion of the North Burial Ground Gatehouse restoration. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Let's get that finished. The next item on the project updates is the Fall River Fire Museum. Again, we're waiting for Corporation Council to let us know who owns this property, who has the responsibility for overseeing this project. Is it the city? Is it the Fire Museum? I mean, I think at this point, Sandy has sent a letter to two corporation counselors, and there's been no response from either yet, so I think next what we should do is send a letter possibly to Mike LePage, who is applying for the project, and maybe he can, I think it's really their responsibility to notify us who owns it, I don't think should be working this way. So I think it's his responsibility to find out, is it their responsibility to go through this, or is it the city's responsibility? So I think we should send a letter to Mike and let it move forward that way. I mean, I don't think it's something we should be responsible for figuring out or trying to figure out.
Right. And I think that, I think Mike knows that, and I think that this is just a difficult decision to make, a very difficult decision for him to make, and he's struggling over that. It's kind of a shame in a sense, because I'm sure that, I don't know if it's really an emergency or not, but I'm sure that roof is a high priority. But, well, we're into May, and
Yeah.
he's gonna have to apply in September.
Well, the thing about it is too, they still haven't got a grant agreement signed from FY19.
Yeah.
Like, and now we're looking at FY20 projects, which one of those is that, so they haven't even started the last year's, they're asking more money for this year, it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem I have with it.
Well, it's a wrench thrown to work that they were. that I
yeah,
don't think
it's
they were
not, I mean, it's not
expecting.
their fault, it's not, I'm not saying it's their fault, but
No,
it is
but-
the problem, and I think they're the ones who need to resolve it.
I know one of the board members says the city wants to give them the building,
Mhm.
but they're not quite sure they want to take the building.
Right.
So.
That's up to them to figure
it's-
out.
Yeah, it's kind of, they got the ball in their court. I mean,
Yep,
what they want to do is up to them.
so,
Yeah.
I think we should send a letter to him, just explaining what we've done, and asking him to like, see if he can get better resolution out of it, because it's not gonna, it's just gonna be a standstill until they do. So, any other questions on that? So the next item up is the FY20 project discussions and votes. Sandy did an awesome job. She spoke with Jen Arlo today, going through the CPA figures of what is in the accounts, what is in the reserve account, what is in the FY20 account, where the emergency fund requests that we have to subtract out of that, our bonding. So I'm gonna let her come in front of us and explain this page of information she gave us. Sandy Dennis, just state your name.
Okay, Sandy Dennis, Administrative Assistant for the CPC Committee. And if you could all take out this sheet of paper, and then what I'll do is I'll explain the funding. There are two sheets attached. The second sheet comes from the Auditor's Department. Okay, and you'll see what I did was, rather than giving you just this sheet, I broke it out for you all. And you'll see the first number is $1,775,121. That figure is what the auditor is projecting for FY20. That's the money that we'll get from the fees that we collect, and then what the state's going to match us. Those are estimates, those are guesses, they're just what Jen feels we're going to get this year. So you have that to start with. Then you need to subtract $185,000, because that's the emergency that you all voted to recommend to the council for the land acquisition for the bioreserve. That's going to bring your subtotal down to $1,590,121. Then you have to remember that you have two bonds out there. You have the Mount Hope Bike bond, and then you have the land acquisition bond. So those two bonds total $138,000. So you subtract that, and what you really have available is $1,452,121. Now, just so that you know, you'll see at the bottom of Jen's sheet, you'll have additional fund balance reserved. In community housing, you still have $403,500. That's for community housing. Then you also have open space, which is $2,750. So you really have an additional amount of money with $406,250.
And only projects for those two type of
and only for those
categories.
two categories. Now, what I did was, I broke it down, so let's say this year, because you have some housing projects, you have $403,500 for housing, but you still can spend your minimum of 10% from the top money, which would be your FY20. So that'll give you about $517,866 to spend in community housing. Then you also have your open space and recreation. You have $2750 in reserve, but you can also spend your minimum or more, but your minimum is $114,366.10, which is $117, but you can spend more on your open space. All of your minimums I put at the bottom, just so that you know what they are. 10% of the total that Jen gave, that's what you have to spend on your minimums. But obviously, you're going to be spending more because you have a lot more project money than 114 in each one of the categories. So when you look at your score sheet, you'll see all your projects. And like I said, you have an awful lot of, like $8 million worth of projects. I just broke this out for you so that you know that you have this additional money in reserve for housing projects. So you don't have to spend all of your FY20 money for housing. You can use some of your reserve. When I do the appropriation order, I will break that down with Jen so the city council knows exactly where all this money is coming from. So it's really up to you as a committee how you want to spend your money. I just thought that this would kind of be an easy tool for all of you, kind of a guide to go by. If you have any questions,
Yeah, that's good.
okay?
Any questions for Sandy?
I just have one.
Yes.
And it's not on those sheets, but the other one.
Yes.
So we had, it lists 2 projects under community housing,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought there were 3.
Yeah, I believe that
Just four.
creative class falls under community housing.
Yeah, because it's listed under
Right.
historic preservation, but not.
Yeah, I guess when Tony did this sheet, that's what they had applied under, but they actually,
Okay.
yeah, they actually fall under
I just wanted
more
to
than
say,
one.
no, you're right. It's probably just the way the program runs,
Mhm.
because if you look at a community housing,
Mhm.
it says, it has a dollar amount,
Mhm.
empty dollar amount on all 4 of the projects.
Mhm.
So just, you should-
And then also on that sheet, I was playing around because I knew I would calculate for you tonight. So I was just playing around with some of the numbers. So when you see amount approved, you'll see 200 and 100,000. Just cross those out. I was just kind of
Yeah.
figuring out how I need to calculate tonight, but I'll calculate a different way on a different sheet for you all. But you can just X those out. Under amount approved, it should all be zeros. So you'll decide tonight what falls under housing, what falls under historic preservation, and then I'll sit there and I'll calculate. All I ask is that you go really slow, and
One question I have, I'm not even asking you, in general, when we vote, how does it work, the majority of the board, as far as, if there's a tie, will there be a tie? 6.
6 would be a
That's
tie.
possible.
So it's possible we could have a 3 and 3.
Take a revote?
But we need a majority of who's here, right? Not a majority of
Right.
the number 9 that we're supposed to have,
yeah,
correct?
because you don't have 9, so
Right,
you have
okay.
to go by what's
So
here.
you
Okay.
need 4.
4 is a quorum.
So 4 would have to be the basic number,
makes sense to me.
right? Okay. So Sandy also calculated our tiered voting. I mean, this is not cast in stone, this voting schedule, but it does give us a good idea of where we think we all stand with it. I mean, it's worked well since probably 3 or 4 years now. Alan Rumsey came up with it first, and then Tony Dice took it over, and it worked quite well through the whole thing. Again, Sandy's gonna continually calculate as we come up with the figures to punch the numbers and tell us where we stand with it all, so as we go down. I mean, we don't have to fund every project entirely if we don't want to. It's larger numbers, we can fund less. It's totally up to us whether we want to or not. I mean, everybody can talk about the project still as we go along and debate still, so if you want. With that being said, we'll start with the first project that they got the most votes. What we did a tiered voting. There were 18 projects, and we picked 6 number 1, 6 number 2, 6 number 3s, that being our 6 most ones we thought were our most attractive projects, and then 6 after that, and then the 6 that we thought, I guess, the least attractive or the least that fit into our criteria. So we all voted. This is what it came out with, where they placed. Sandy put them in line as far as what was first and what was last, and the very first one is the Lafayette Durfee House. So I don't know if anybody wants to speak about this, and go talk and vote.
Most beloved project right about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It got most number 1, only 1 number 3, the rest were number 1s.
I'd make a motion to fund the $69,300 under historic preservation.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second to fund the Lafayette Durfee House renovation for $69,300. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of this vote?
Aye.
If everybody would raise their hands higher just so we get a good count on it. 6 of us, yay. No nays?
No nays.
The number 2 scored project was the Dr. Fisk House. This was submitted by the Preservation Society of Fall River. They requested $69,000 for this to fund for heating and air conditioning. I'm the vice president of the Preservation Society, so I'm going to abstain from conversation, and I'm going to abstain from the vote on this particular project.
And I have to also.
It says 49,000.
Yeah, that's going by Tony's old one,
That was Tony, yeah.
so I just corrected it on my sheet.
It's
Oh, so
69,
it's
yeah,
69.
it's 69.
69?
Yes. So any discussion on this project?
I'd make a motion to pass the $69,000 under historic preservation.
I'll second.
So any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second to fund Dr. Fisk House for $69,000 under historic preservation. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? So the motion carries 4. Next project is the creative class at 64 Durfee Street. Mr. Alan Macumber had come in front of us on this project. I think it's a real critical project for our city. It fits 2 categories. If it's housing, if it's preservation. It's part of the Lower Highlands. It's part of the Arts Overlay District. It's part of the waterfront redevelopment area. It's in the middle of that. It's in the middle of downtown. It's in a really great location for a major redevelopment. And it's a big piece of property. So I think it's quite impressive. I actually called Alan myself. I had a couple of questions on this, and he had a couple of questions for myself also. And one thing he was saying that to move this project forward, he would need $300,000. He actually told me that point blank. So we have money in housing. There's $517,866 in housing. It's shameful, I think, that the Housing Authority has never, we've had appointees, they've left, they've never reappointed somebody. Having CPA, having a Housing Authority person, it's really their responsibility to come up with great projects to use this housing money. There's been nobody here to even care. So I mean, there's several projects with housing. This is a great project. I mean, personally, I think we should use housing money. We have it, and that's my opinion on it, so I'll let anybody else speak about it.
I'll jump in too if it's okay. I like this project. I really like that it meets 2 criteria, and I think we should be recognizing that more often. It's so rare that a project actually does meet dual criteria, and it is a state recommendation that projects that meet dual criteria get a higher credit from us. So I like it. I'll support it. I do have it on my mind, like even though I think it's a better project, I'd like to be able to support the other projects as well, so I don't know if we have to do some quick math to see,
Well, we have
can we give it the full
517,
five?
We can
Or
always
still
split
have-
some,
We got 200,000.
yeah.
Left
If
if you
three,
could-
yeah.
Okay.
I think the one thing that I'd like to say about this too is, it's such a great application. As far as what we've
Extremely
decided,
thorough.
we wanna, that we wanna see an application. I mean, I don't think you could just,
And he's
Get a better
also
application.
gone in
It's
front
so-
of this, he's got
so
historic,
thorough.
mass historic tax credits already.
He
So
does.
He's really done incredible homework on this whole thing.
and just the fact too of where it's located and how much that would enhance that neighborhood is just,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long,
The view coming over the bridge, just highlight, yeah.
Yep.
It does fall into the
Yes.
new urban redevelopment
yes.
plan, right in the heart of, between the downtown and the connection to the waterfront, so.
and just the master plan too, and saving our historic buildings. So it does tick off a lot of boxes.
any other comments or questions on the project?
I'll support this.
Anybody have any recommendation for funding?
I make a motion to fund 300,000 in historic preservation.
It would have to be on the housing.
Oh, okay, 300, you guys right, housing.
Yeah, cause like, see, we have
Yep.
517,000
Yeah.
in housing.
That one actually could be under both, it doesn't have to come completely out of housing.
Well, then we'd have leftover, if you wanna leave extra more money in housing, it would sit there in the housing.
Oh, I'm just saying that,
Do you want
It
it,
could.
do you want the 300 out of the reserve housing or the FY20 housing?
Well,
let's start with using the reserve.
yeah, I would say take it out of the reserve, because we still will have the funds to fund other project if we choose to anyway. So we have a motion to fund the creative class loft for 300,000. Do I have a second?
Second?
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of that?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next project up is the Preservation Design Guidelines. This was also submitted by the Preservation Society. I personally will abstain from this one also, because I'm the vice president of that organization. This project gave us a little heartache, because it was, there was a motion to make this an emergency fund by Tony Dias, and it's a phenomenal project. I mean, I'd love to vote on it, I'm not going to. Anybody have any questions on this?
I'll just stop and mention again, I have to abstain also.
I would just like to say something about it in that I think it's so important. This project is so important because so many people will be able to use this, not only the different commissions, but anybody in the city that's doing historic projects, people in the historic district. And even though I didn't feel it was an emergency, I still feel that it's absolutely vital. And so,
I agree.
Any other comments or questions on this particular project? Someone would like to make a motion on it?
I'd like to make a motion to fund the Preservation Design Guidelines for $50,000.
Out of which category?
Historic preservation.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to fund the Preservation Design Guidelines for $50,000 out of historic preservation. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 4-2 abstentions, I guess. Next on our list is the Vietnam vet wall. This project, they did a great job on this application. They've done a really great job on their fundraising. I know they continue to do that. This was submitted by Joe Marshall, Vietnam Veteran War Memorial Committee. They are asking for funds from a CPA for $500,000. Again, it's not necessary to fund the entire thing. We choose not to. I'll let anybody speak on this.
So it's I agree, great project. I'll be supporting it. It did look like they had a bunch of fundraising, so we probably don't have to fund the entire amount. I don't know what the bottom line figure is. I'm thinking it's about $350, but.
It's a great project, and I'm supporting it.
Well, if we fund, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, if we fund the full thing, what they don't use is gonna come back,
Right.
so.
Correct.
I mean, I would like for us to support the 500,000, but if,
At this point, Sandy, what's in our account at this point left?
Okay, so
498.
far,
I always said 498.
yeah.
I mean, I think that's a very large amount myself. I mean, there
So
are
this
quite a
one
few
falls
other
under,
projects.
this one here falls under open space, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
open space
Yes.
recreation.
So far you've spent, hang on. $188,300. Because the 300, your other one, you're coming out of reserve. So of your FY20 money,
Wow.
it's 188,300.
Is what's left in,
That's what you've spent already.
But how much money
How much-
can we keep
Oh, you wanna
spending?
know how much more you have left, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
because I mean,
'Cause
remember,
all we need to do is find out what the balance is and subtract the minimum
Yeah.
114 for preservation.
for open space, you mean?
Preservation. Because the 114 is our minimum, but we can spend more than that.
Right. 114 is the minimum in the housing. 117 is the minimum in open space right now. Correct, is that what you're saying?
It's the minimum in all three.
So now you've got
Well-
1,000,000.
Well, actually, there was $2,750 in reserves from open space. So really, in the reserve account from open space, there's 117,000.
What I'm saying is, just for an example,
Yeah,
if there's $1 million in the whole account, we can spend $700,000 in open space. That's what I'm saying. So we have to do the math backwards.
Yep, so right now you've got $1,263,821 left to spend.
So we got plenty.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of, okay.
But I know they had applied for the $500,000, but just in the past, like, couple of weeks, didn't they just get a $150,000 grant from the state? So
Correct.
wouldn't that automatically bump it down to 350
$350.
because they did get
that's what I think too, 'cause they-
150,000?
Is there maybe a compromise? Like, it would be nice to have them some of the extra money, but it's just that if we
I
give them
mean-
the full 5, we might be eliminating some other good
And
projects.
I mean, I think they still have other
yeah, we still,
things in the works to.
I mean, I personally would, myself, I think 300,000 is a pretty decent amount too. I don't think it has to be the entire amount. No one else that they've gotten funds from are giving the entire amount.
no.
So I think a portion of the amount is good. That's my opinion.
Because the project is, this year they're only spending to get
Right.
the wall in, right?
Right, yeah.
The construction starts next year.
Yes.
So they would have enough money to get the
To
wall.
get everything, so.
Yeah.
So if we,
300 would
if we
be
did something, I was gonna say,
sufficient.
if we did something like 350, and then if they really were short, they
Yeah,
could
that
apply
would-
in September.
Yeah,
And that, if we did 350, that wouldn't cut their legs out.
No,
I wouldn't want that to happen.
no, 350 would.
Do we have to specify what the part of the project that we're funding? Do we have to specifically specify, Sandy, which
If
part?
you can, yeah, I mean, for me, because then, I mean, if it's to bring the wall here, that's already coming
Yeah,
under.
those already coming.
Yeah, that's already coming, so they could have used this money for that anyway, because it's before the allocation.
Right.
And the approval, so you need to figure out what part of this project is gonna fall under the time frame that the city council approves this.
Well, looking at their budget here, The replica wall itself is costing $300,000. Supplies is costing, for landscaping supplies, $80,000. Contractual figures they have here, $245,000 is for installation, $105,000 is for lighting, security, and utilities. Construction of a small museum building is $150,000. So that's, and that comes up to a $500,000. So if we specifically designate where it's gonna go, it'll be helpful in the grant
And
agreement also.
it'll go in your agreement too. This way they'll know exactly what you're allocating for them from this committee.
What if we did the 300 for the actual wall?
Yeah.
Isn't that a,
But I think the
Yeah.
wall's already been, that's gonna be
I don't-
built
I don't
before.
think so.
No,
Has
it
it
wasn't.
got- It's come in yet?
No, it's not coming in yet. It's not
So
done
you haven't
yet.
paid for it yet?
I'd have to ask,
Because whatever's been paid for already, you can't use
Correct.
this
yeah,
money
right,
for.
I'm not sure.
So I would think maybe not, because I've heard rumblings that it's on its way, it's gonna be
Yeah.
in storage, so I'm thinking
Because if
that's
it's on its way,
possibly.
it must already be built.
We could do the math, though, when we do the contract. Like, we could say, for example, if if we're approved the 350, it's when we do the contract, that's when we really need to.
No, it's
No,
when
I
it
think
goes
it's
down to
not.
the council, because I have to put it in the final report.
Right,
I need to know what's being allocated for what. That's where all the confusion came in the past
Okay,
years.
so we
so
have
what about the building, the little museum building, and then another?
excavation, that's gonna be the first thing you have to do, would be the excavation.
And what's that?
That's 240,000. And then, the small building is, 150.
Yeah. How
So
about we
We
do
did the
the,
excavation and then maybe something else?
how about the excavating is 240 and then landscaping is 80?
That's 320, that's nice.
that sounds good.
Okay.
So if we specifically say that's where the funds are for, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to make a motion,
I'll make a motion.
you have to explain exactly what it is and what the funds are going for.
So the total amount, what is that for?
We're gonna go, where is it? Yeah, 240
Yeah.
excavating and then 80 for landscaping.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we fund $240,000 for the excavation, the garden location, the grand location, and $80,000 for the landscaping.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to fund the Vietnam vet wall for $240,000 in excavation and $80,000 in landscaping. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So that was a total.
320.
You have 94,300. $943,821 left.
How much, Sandy? I'm sorry.
943,800.
943?
Yeah.
Yeah, because our estimate wound up being higher than what we thought
821.
a month ago. We're doing good.
So the next item on the list is the Bowen Borden Historic Cemetery marker. Again, this was like an incredibly good, as small as, this was a request from the Friends of Oak Grove Cemetery. Gail Powers did the application, $6,600, extremely well documented and planned application. I mean, I wish that they all came in like this. I mean, there's nothing you can ask for. Any other comments on it?
I think it's a good project. It's cheap money, gonna dress the area up.
And it's great just because, and I know that they had gone in and done some work to clean it up, so it just looks really nice now, but just the fact that it has ties to the Underground Railroad and it's something that we really wanna promote, especially in that area, it really is just a great project for such a small amount of money. And just to give it that visibility.
I'll make a motion that we grant Borden Historical Cemetery market for $6,600.
So I have a motion, a second.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to fund the Bowen Borden Historical Cemetery marker for $6,600. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is the north stair concrete bleacher seating removal. So again, another heavily debated project through several boards and people. This was submitted by the North End Neighborhood Association. They were asking originally for $326,611 for this project. So in one of our meetings, we had asked the city to encase this in a fence, which they've done, because it is pretty dangerous. And now now it's out for us to figure out what we want to do with the rest of it and how much we want to fund. So
I think Jim talked to him and said they have it down to 150 for the cost.
Yeah.
Yes, I spoke with the Parks Department, and I talked about this project, and I said that we'd like to see it go forward. Seems to be a lot of support, but the $300,000 would probably be difficult to fund the whole amount. They felt that they could break it down into phases, even though the original estimate doesn't reflect it. They felt that they could break it down into phases and get a demolition in just a basic grading.
like dirt,
Just
grading,
Yeah, just
grass.
dirt.
take away the blocks that's there now
Yep,
and just slope it,
yep.
so it's,
And they actually felt that it could be done for maybe less than 130, but they thought 150 was a very reasonable number to go with, just in case that number was off, because they do have to go through the RFP process.
Okay.
And so I think, Victor, they might have talked about it on the Parks Board.
yeah, we
Do you
did.
feel like the
And,
same?
that's what we're looking at, somewhere around that,
How did the park board feel about it all?
they were comfortable for it, going forward with it, so.
Good.
And that was Nancy Smith I spoke with specifically. She appreciated that too. She appreciated the offer, especially since we didn't have something in writing. But she said, did talk to her, and she spoke with your Parks Board. I'm hoping that that can be taken into consideration.
So,
If there's no, and I don't know if it's too early for me to make a motion. I would make a motion that we approve it for $150,000, just for a first phase demolition.
So the first phase would be demolition and grading?
yes, so the demolition, hauling everything out of there, getting everything out, the concrete and
Yep.
all that, and then just
New loam and then grass.
And grass, that's it,
Yep.
no, nothing else.
Nothing else.
So, okay, so you wanna restate your motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to advance this project for $150,000 for first phase demolition and grading, pending the RFP process.
Okay,
Second.
so we have a motion and a second to fund the North Park stair concrete bleacher seating removal for $150,000, demolition and regrading. All in favor?
We need a
Any
second.
opposed?
Need a second.
Oh, sorry.
John
John
seconded
Briggs
it.
seconded.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
John seconded.
John seconded.
So-
Seconded it? Is that the seconded it?
Seconded.
That word?
Okay, so you have $787,221 left.
The next project is the City Fall River Historical Documents. This is one of the Sanborn maps. We had done most of the others, and this was one left behind somehow accidentally. It's for $6,207. I know that the engineering department and people are enjoying this new,
The previous digitized ones,
yeah, so it's a pretty simple project.
I think it's a good project, and I would move it to be funded under a motion under historic for $6,207.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to fund the Sanborn map for $6,207 under stock preservation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next project is the Denon building. This was submitted by Tony Cadero. This building is at 171 Pleasant Street. He was asking for $500,000. He actually has another project also on 3rd Street for $500,000 also, converting this into apartments using community housing money also. He also had this under historic preservation too. Not all of the information here, I found that the application was lacking some information myself. I mean, there were no tax credits tried to be acquired through this. I don't know if people have any questions or comments on this project?
My first comment is just that it didn't meet the historic preservation guidelines, so it wasn't eligible under historic preservation.
But it is under housing.
It is under housing, and I feel bad saying it out loud right now because it does look like it is checked off on both columns. But the problem was, as we mentioned last month with Tony Dias and I both questioned the architect, that they weren't amenable to doing, to meeting Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation on historic property. And we had asked them specifically that, and they said they didn't want to do that, and that, in fact, one of the drawings that they had, they showed that they were putting a wall covering, which is one of the hallmarks of not rehabilitating correctly. And that's okay. I think it's a great housing project anyways. I just wanted to mention that it doesn't meet both criteria. And then the other thing I'll mention is just simply that I don't think we have $500,000. We can't give them the full amount. And the other thing is that there's two projects from them that are similar. So I don't know if we want to, I think we should consider this, like, do we divide this up, or do we even consider funding one more and having him consider coming back in September to fund the other one? Because I don't think he probably completely appreciated that when he put these two applications in, I mean, it was $1 million, it was a major part of the budget. So, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
I know I talked to Tony about it, I said 500 though, you're not going to get. I said, so if you did get funding, what would you want it for? And the trolley Ben and Nate, to do the elevators, $250,000. So if we could do 200 for that, that would help him out a big.
That'd probably go a long way.
Yeah. So he would bypass on the trolley building then, so that's where he wanted the money most for.
I think that's really reasonable of him to do that.
Again, there is funds still in the housing. So,
Well, we could start with this one.
yep.
You can
Anybody-
use your minimum out of FY20, and then you can take
The
the balance out of your reserve
Right.
housing.
Yep.
So this way you'll use your minimum
Right, so
in housing.
altogether we've got 217,000 as a minimum in housing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you've got 103, because you just allocated 300 for Allen, so now you have 103,500 left in your housing, and then you've got your minimum for FY20, which is 114,366.10.
I'd just like to entertain two thoughts. One is if we did the 217, it'll probably leave extra money in preservation. But if we went for the full 250,
You can take.
is there much money
you
left in
can-
preservation available for?
What I'll do is I'll calculate it two ways, okay? I'll take out, so you wanna do another 100 out of the reserve account?
So, I think personally, I would like to see the housing account depleted.
So would.
Yeah,
that's my
Yeah,
opinion.
I
yeah.
agree.
So
I
I'll do,
agree.
let's say, okay, so I'll do 100 out of, the reserve, and then I'll do 150 out of the regular FY20, okay? So, let's see, we'll do under.
So we need to make a
housing.
motion here.
Want me to figure it out first?
Okay.
Okay, so 150, so let's see. Okay, so if we do 150 out of your FY20, that's gonna leave 637,221. And if he's gonna forego the trolley and apply for that next year, then you can allocate for some other projects, because then the other 100 is gonna come out of your reserve.
So, okay.
I like that. So the 250 is reasonable, it's very specific for the elevator.
So I make a motion for, under community housing, for the Ben and Nate building, 250,000 for the elevator.
I'll second that.
Okay, but for the minutes, can you just break it out, 100 out of reserve and 150 out of FY20
100 out of reserve and 150 out of FY20
housing?
housing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to fund 171 Pleasant Street, Ben and Nate Building, 100,000 out of reserve and 150,000 out of housing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next project up is the improvement to the Quikasham Rail Trail. It's written by Friends of the Quikasham Rail Trail, Al Lima specifically. They were asking for $124,190 to extend the Quikasham Rail Trail from the existing end, that's to the Westport Town Line. And they were also asking for funds for benches and trees and, what else was it? Plantings. So, personally, I think, for me, I'm willing to like fund the part that brings it to the Westport Town Line, and not so much the trees and the benches and all that stuff. I mean, it's kind of nice, but for myself, I think 80,000 is what it's gonna take to do that design phase to the Westport Town Line. That's my opinion. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in on it.
Is it broken down for benches? Is that like a specific amount in here?
Is,
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think benches are important too. So many people use that trail and it is nice to have benches for them to sit on.
Yeah,
Maybe not so much the trees and the plantings, but I mean, I think benches are kind of,
Because I think we can get trees from the tree farm, so that'd be.
yeah. But I think benches are still kind of important for the amount of people that use it. And,
So, yes.
I don't see what the total for all of the trees and all that.
the good news is, Jim, is at least we have enough money for the whole project.
That's true. We do. It's not broken down to like all of those, to the trees and stuff, actually.
So we did the whole thing, that would bring us up to what, 1350? 1.35?
oh no, it's
That
not,
was
not at
1.2
all.
we spent so far.
So how do you know it's 80,000?
Because I had asked him when
Oh,
he
right,
was here.
because I didn't see that.
Yeah. I mean, if someone wants to make a motion to fund it all, we can.
This was,
But I
I don't know if there's any more discussion on that.
don't know if anybody has a discussion, anybody wants to make a motion?
Can we, I almost feel like, well, maybe we should do the 80 and see where the numbers come out, but then are we actually able to come back to this vote?
Yes, I think you can. I think if you want, I think you can come back, you can put this aside and see how much money you spend and come back to it. That's what we did last year. And then you kind of reallocated.
Yeah, we
I like
can.
that. Let's do that.
So,
You
So we make
any
a
motion
motion on
year.
the 80 and then come back and.
And
or
then
do we
make that
just-
in your motion that depending upon how many more funds are left to revisit the Quikasham Rail.
I'll make a motion that we approve $80,000
the design phase.
for the design phase from open space for the improvements to the Quikasham River Rail Trail project. And that we come back to this if there's money left at the end of our cycle.
Do I have a second?
Second, huh?
So I have a motion and a second to fund $80,000 for the design phase of the improvements to the Quikasham Rail Trail from open space with the intent to revisit this at the end of our debate here. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is the trolley building submitted by Anthony Cadero, 33rd Street. Any discussion on this?
So are we safe passing on this one, you think? And then he can come back in September and put in a, because we could do a partial funding possibly here now, or we could have him come back in September, he could try to, another project.
Or you can go through your projects, and if there's money left, come back to that one. You did that last year too, on some of your projects.
I think maybe since we
I
did give him money for
Yeah, I
the
mean,
other building, and I think it would be,
I would like
fair
to see
to-
him come back personally myself,
Yeah.
to hopefully go in front of the Mass Historic Commission, see what they get for tax credits on this building. I mean, we did fund one project, I mean, it's
Mhm.
two projects from the same exact person.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
fine with
agree.
I think it's 250 going to them is fair.
I do
Right,
too.
I think so.
It's a good,
Would anybody wanna make a motion on this for any
I'll
reason
make
to
a
pass
motion.
it, to keep it, to?
I'll make a motion that he comes back in September for this project.
Okay, I guess I don't think we so much need a motion on it, I don't think we have to, but
Just skip it.
yeah.
are we okay with like passing on this project?
And then-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next item up is the, submitted by the Maritime Museum. They're looking for $76,000 to,
For the HVAC.
HVAC system.
For the feasibility study.
Yep.
We still have 75,000 available in historic, or in the budget.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. You have $557,221 left.
I'll make a motion that we approve the full $76,000 under historic preservation for the Marine Museum HVAC systems feasibility study.
I will second that.
Any discussion on this? I'd just like to say that, I mean, they came in front of us, it's really a great project, and I like the fact that it's a feasibility study and then not just jumping in and just doing a project without getting, it kind of
Right.
planned first.
Yeah, they had
So,
taken our recommendations that we
Yeah.
made, and they did really well, and
Yep.
it's a good application too.
So we have a motion and a second to fund, Marine Museum for $76,000 under historic preservation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is the People Incorporated, which I don't know what I did with my,
I'll start. I don't mind starting, Jim.
okay,
So, this is, I like this project, I'm supportive of it. The only thing that's changed was that we had recommended that they hire an architect first because of the extensive nature of the project. And they actually wrote us a letter back agreeing with us, saying that they were gonna hire an architect if they were funded. So that's probably gonna affect the amount that they,
well, I got a call today because I contacted,
Peter?
Pete, I'm not sure what I did with my application, the woman who, does anybody have this application with them?
Right here.
Megan. So I contacted Megan, and Peter Daly ended up calling me back today, and he was saying that they hired stock architects, and that the fees for the architect to oversee the project would be $5,000, but it wasn't so much an architect to go over the whole design of the project. It was just to literally oversee what was being done on this construction. So I don't know,
So it's not,
it's not an architect,
The
doing.
architect didn't draw, write up a plan and recommendation.
No, no. So, but he said the fee wouldn't exceed $5,000 for the architect, but that doesn't seem like enough to do the plan on that roof, I don't think.
but I mean, are they just
Replacing what they have.
replacing the roof with the slate, but they're keeping it to what it actually is?
So
I mean,
they
it's-
actually had two different estimates.
Right.
Yeah,
One estimate was to replace the entire roof with new slate. One of the estimates was to remove some of the slate and add some new slate and kind of repair the roof.
right,
And then the third estimate was to remove all the slate and put a slate substitute. So the more I reviewed the estimates, I think they're not bad. I was just mostly concerned that when they first came out and said they were going to remove the entire roof, that didn't ring appropriate to me for a slate roof. So,
No, but my question is, do they, if they're just replacing what's there with slate, they're not changing the design of the house or anything, do they need the architect
they
to
should
do
have it on.
anything other than oversee?
They should, because slate is so heavy, even though they're removing slate and just putting slate back on, they have to make sure that the way it's being done
Gonna be
and
folded up?
it can just hold.
What would you possibly think that an estimate might be for that? I mean, could we come up, I mean, I don't think, like you
I
said.
know a house in that neighborhood had the exact same thing done, where a slate specialist came in. It was an old slate roof, and they replaced the hips and the valleys and the saddles, replaced slate where they needed to, and it was about $60,000. So my thought would be that we give them an extra $5,000 to make sure that work and the architect is covered. But do we need to probably sit down and talk with them and the architect before the work starts to see what they're really gonna do? Because we have 3 different estimates, so we just don't know exactly which plan they're doing. That's all.
Now, will the architect have the final sign off to make sure it's?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Yep.
so,
But is it Stark they have?
What's that?
Is it Stark?
Yeah.
Who's the architect?
Stark.
So, I mean, it will be historically accurate, yes. No, I
So,
mean,
of course.
I'm just, I mean, they know what Secretary of Interior standards is. I
Well,
mean,
we need to make sure they know. They know what Secretary of Interior standards is, they might not know that has to be in the contract. But that'll be written in the
So
contract.
with the
Right.
3 estimates though, which one is they didn't?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
They didn't know yet.
They don't know yet. All 3 of them will meet Secretary of Interior standards. All 3 of them will meet it, absolutely. They're all okay. They're not taking the slate off to put an asphalt shingle on it. That would not meet Secretary of Interior standards.
And even the faux slate
Even the faux
will
slate is
still meet
acceptable.
standards
Yeah.
because it still looks like slate.
Right.
Any comments, other comments?
I think it'll come in less than the 115, but I'd hate to cut it down and then shoot them in the foot because they're off $15,000.
And if it's less, they'll return it, so.
Right.
So, anybody want to entertain anything, go right ahead.
I just didn't know if there's any more input from
I'm fine with
I
that.
feel like I'm running this particular conversation, I'm not comfortable with it.
We're fine with it.
All right, I'll make a motion that we advance this project and approve $115,000. So that reflects an extra $5,000 for the architect, for the People Incorporated 636 Rock Street project, for the slate roof under historical preservation.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to allocate $115,000 to People Incorporated for a natural slate roof, including the fees for an architect. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So where does that leave us?
Okay, you're 366,221, so you're doing good.
Wow.
You're doing really
So
good.
the next project is submitted by Charlie Jacobson. It's the 77 Freedom Street Police Fire Station. They're looking for funds of $94,000 for windows and masonry. They don't have an architect yet, do they?
No, they might go keep it.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
They wrote it into the budget.
Yeah. They had 25,000 for the architect.
Yeah.
What I was thinking of this project is funding the architect, getting that back and having him come back next year. So they have a better grasp on what it's gonna cost.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
I think that's a good idea.
I like the idea.
Great job.
So I'll make a motion to, on the 77 Freedom Street, under historic, to $25,000 for the architect.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? So we have a motion to fund 77 Freedom Street for $25,000 for fees for the architect. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Anawan number 6 restoration. They are asking for $187,000 for a roof renovation. Again, they haven't even begun on FY19's project at all. I mean, I'm personally think that the prior project should be completed first. That's my opinion on it.
I agree.
I agree, I am concerned about the roof, might need to be an emergency project, but that being said, there's still money available in our account. So if they did clear things up and if they came back next month and said, this is an emergency, we could reconsider.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, that's the thing, if we do keep some money and not allocate everything to every project, then if we do have something
But
that
the-
like that
and-
comes
but
up.
for me though, the clarity of who owns this building is still in
It
limbo,
is,
so.
it is.
Yeah.
Until I think
And
we
it
know
can-
that,
Yeah.
had I realized that on the last project, I don't think I would have funded that one either until the clarity came together, because it's gonna be, you
A
know,
big difference.
budgeted in two different
Yeah.
ways, you know, so I think, I personally wanna wait on it, but everyone has their own opinion.
I think we should wait on this
I
project
prefer to wait.
myself.
Does anybody, do we wanna just pass on this project and
Yeah.
they'll come back to us? Like you
Say
say,
pass.
Jim's correct,
Mhm.
if it's that much of an emergency, we'd have the funds in the account where we can go into emergency funds, so. Okay. Next project up is the historic pumping station. It was
No,
submitted
waiting
by,
pool.
oh, I'm sorry,
Waiting.
I'm sorry. North Park Wading Pool. This was submitted by the North End Neighborhood Association. Little controversial on what exactly was gonna be done. I think the clarity wasn't quite there as far as what was exactly gonna be finished. I'll let anybody else speak about it.
I think we should pass on this one and get with the Parks Department, come back next year,
And have them do
But,
it. I agree with it.
you know.
I agree also, because we're funding the stairs, the demolition of the
Yeah.
stairs. And I think that, personally, I'd like to see more of the projects that we've allocated for park projects. Not just this one, but in the past, the feasibility study and that move along before we really start to tackle the
Yeah.
wading pool restoration, because I
Yeah,
think
let's
there was
finish one.
there was still some question on what,
And I said it before too,
everybody knows.
I mean, I think this was Tony's done a great job and I
Absolutely.
definitely miss him on the board. Wealth of knowledge, but it was definitely a poor application
yeah.
in general, I think.
Well, I think there was even just some disagreement among the members of the Northern Neighborhood Association about how it was gonna be a wading pool, was it gonna be, you know,
Yeah.
how it was gonna be used, so I think this would still, I think it's still a good project, but I think maybe next year, with a little more clarity and maybe a little more done in the park that we've already allocated, I'd like to see that come back again.
I'm in agreement. So are we in agreement on passing on this one?
Yes.
Sandy, what are we down to now?
Okay, you're gonna like it. $341,221.
Wow.
40?
341,221.
So the next project up is the, submitted by Paul Furland, from the Water Department. It's for the historic pumping station on Watuppa Pond. They are looking for architectural and engineering plans for an adaptive reuse to this building of $250,000. Any comments on the project?
Yeah, I'll stop. So this is the project that, I love the project, but it just irks me that it doesn't meet perfectly the guidelines about accessibility, even though they're talking about in the future maybe That being said, the building is so iconic, then maybe, since we have the money available, maybe this is a good time to get the feasibility study done.
I feel the same way with the public access, you know, but we do have the money, so
Yeah,
might be a good time to do it.
and at least they're talking about having a plan, and, you know, and maybe we've stopped them from putting that space age warehouse next to it.
I really hope that they will do what they say and actually have public access.
Well, again, this is
to
just
it
for the
at some
first
point.
phase of it.
No, I
all.
know.
mean, it's got a ways to go till,
No, I know.
till it gets to the point of where they, my
But I
thought
would
is
just like
on,
to see that.
I think, like, Mike Labasio is obviously part of that, the water department in that extent. And they talk about like education center for the bio reserve and all that stuff, so who knows, that could be the great building for that down the road, you know, for an education center that they talk about, you know.
It's perfect for a brewery.
It is perfect for a brewery.
Just
You're right.
Just saying.
No, I agree with you, it is perfect for a brewery.
I mean, I definitely think because of the nature of the building and like Jim said, the iconic status of it, that doing, you know, an architectural study of the building and
I mean, we didn't take a tour of it, I did take a tour of it because they came before us, I believe, in the first or second year. Did you go with us, John?
No.
So, I mean, they've done, like, Terry has done a great job accessing money through Mass Historic Commission, for historic tax credits and funds through MHC. So, you can see it, the roof is already redone, so they're going about it the right way in that regard to stabilize that building, so it's not that they haven't done anything and then just like, you know, let's give us all the money.
No, but just to
He has
have-
actively tried,
I
and he's
think,
actually
yeah.
done work already on it, so.
it's a good place, just to have the plans is a good thing. You know, like I said, my reservation is just for future use, that I really I wanna see public access, but I
Yeah.
also, I appreciate the historic nature of that building.
Beautiful.
And I've never seen it in person, I'd love to see it, but just the pictures that I've seen of it, it's a stunning building.
And we can always go there and buy canned heat or Troy City Brewery beer, Jim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know. Right?
I'll make a motion to fund this project, $250,000 for a feasibility study of the historic pump house out of historic preservation funding.
That's second.
So we have any motion and discussion, second to fund the historic pumping station for $250,000 out of historic preservation. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
$91,221.
That's exactly how much I thought we should keep in our reserve.
Well, did you want to go back and look at?
Well, we have
the,
one left.
Improvements?
We have one more to discuss. And it's for the boat ramp submitted by Chris Gallagher, the Buildings and Grounds Facility Maintenance. It's for $85,000. I'll let anybody.
Wasn't there a question on that still?
Does that still belong to the city, or does that belong?
No,
Yeah,
the
there's
state-
questions on.
State owns it.
There's questions
Yeah.
on who owns it and the letters of, I mean, it's not like all the parties involved aren't all on board.
No,
Right.
So I think we have to pass on it. I hope it comes back in September and it's cleaned up. Because
Yes.
I want this to go forward.
it's a great project, but you really have to get your ducks in a row. I mean, to know who owns it and to know who's supporting it, who doesn't support it. If you don't have that information, I don't see how you can even consider it.
I agree.
I agree.
I recommend we pass this project up for now.
Everyone in favor of that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we decided earlier to revisit the Quikasham Rail Trail. We had allocated $80,000 to that. They were looking for, I believe, $124 for other upgrades to the existing trail.
I'd love to make a motion that we fund that full amount, now knowing that we have the money in reserves for the $124,000.
It's 124,190.
$124,190
190.
dollars from open space, and that'll be for the study and the park benches and trees if needed, as per their application request.
Let's second that.
So we have a motion and a second to fund the Quikasham Rail Trails Extension feasibility study and the other amenities to that for park benches and trees. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, can you recess so I can calculate?
Yes.
Just wanna make sure.
Can we take a
that-
5-minute recess, please? Thank you.
4, 3, 2.
Okay, Community Preservation Committee, we're back from our 5-minute break. We are done with the project debates and funding. We've totaled, Sandy, could you give us just a quick rundown on the totals?
Yep, under historic preservation, you're funding $817,107. Under open space, you're funding $444,190. Under community housing, you're funding $150,000. Then in the housing reserve account, you're going to fund $400,000. So you're gonna be allocating a total of $1,411,297 in the FY '20 projects, and then again, an extra $400 out of the housing reserve account. So you'll be totaling $1,811,297.
Right. Thank you. So that brings us to an end of the discussions. Any other questions or comments on this? We'll come up with another meeting, I'm not sure when, because we'll have to come up with the document to go before the city council with.
What I'll do next is I'll work on the appropriation order with Jen Argo. I would think that this appropriation order should be able to go to the council by June. And not foreseeing any problems, if they approve it, you can get your contracts written June and July.
Okay. Any other comments, or anybody want to add anything to the next agenda? Obviously, we're going to roll over the discussion on the reimbursement for the students, possibly Sandy. And then we'll email and come up with the next date for our meeting to meet.
And then you wanna go over the project assignments again, seeing that Tony's left to reassign the projects.
That's a good idea, yeah. And maybe we can also put an update on the projects that we currently have, you know, and see if what's moving along on those, so.
And then, and I just put in everybody's packet, cause there was questions, when you get your assignments on your projects, in the back of your packet, I put the new paperwork. Jim, you've already done yours with, I believe, one of your groups, but it looks like this, that you need to go to your projects. You should all have the list of what's assigned to you right now, but you do need, everyone has to fill out a certificate of non-collusion. And every time you do, you get a receipt, you need to have them fill out the certificate of payment request. And once you and the architect, the builder, signs off on it, then you can give this sheet with all your receipts and invoices to me so I can do the bill schedule. It's a different process than everybody's used to in the past, so it's gonna get some taking used to. So then, when the project is complete, you have to fill out the certificate of completion again with all the invoices. And Jim, and we ran into a little snag because there's some things that I guess you gotta really use your own judgment that, you know, you don't need to go through all this. I mean, there were certain projects that, you know, like an architect may not have to look at, like Dave Jennings gave me supplies. Well, he needs those supplies before he can get started, so we're not gonna say, I can't sign him up on supplies, so things like that, you know, just kind of use your discretion.
Great. All right, can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.